Unless you live under a rock, you are probably familiar with what has been happening with the US based company Blizzard, who makes such amazing game titles as World of Warcraft, and most importantly, for the purpose of this conversation, Hearthstone. And if you aren't, let's just kind of sum it up. A player was banned from Hearthstone, got prize money taken away, and he voiced his opinion on what is currently happening with Hong Kong and China, and freedom of humanity, basically. Now, it's important to note that I completely support 100%, human rights, free speech, all of that, right? I believe, and many other people believe, and even the people at Blizzard feel that what is happening within Hong Kong and China and these protests is just absolutely ludicrous, and it's a problem. However, you have to take a look at this situation that is happening within Blizzard, within esports as a whole. Now, this person, and you guys obviously, hopefully have looked this up. If not, pause this video right now, go look up and see exactly what happened. However, during this live stream, he, voiced his opinion and voiced his initial thoughts or initial concerns, and said, liberate China, right, or liberate Hong Kong, whatever the exact wordage was, which is great, right? We want to voice our opinions. We want to share how we feel. We want to bring awareness to this, right? Because they're protesting there. So essentially, he acted in protest with utilizing a live stream to voice what his concerns were, to voice what he had said. Which, again, that's great because it brings more awareness. And clearly it has brought a ton of awareness to what is happening. Much more so than previously. Now, there's problems with this, however. And I could totally understand Blizzard's stance in many ways on this. Because ultimately, when this type of thing happens, it affects esports at a whole. It doesn't just affect Blizzard. It doesn't just affect Epic Games. It doesn't, every single company out there who is participating in esports or who wants to participate in esports is affected by this. Because, simply put, there are rules in place. And this person knew the rules that were put in place. They agreed, don't bring political things into this. Don't bring anything controversial into this. That's not what esports is about. Just like real sports, regular sports. And I don't mean to say real sports and offend anybody who does esports, because esports is definitely a big deal, right? However, in sports like the NBA or football, soccer, you don't find this, right? It's not as apparent. And when it does happen, you have the same effect, because when people want to watch sports, they tune in to watch sports, not to hear, any type of political things that are happening or somebody's opinion on something that is completely unrelated to sports. Now, what happens with this is that ultimately companies get affected by this and sponsors start pulling out, which is bad. It is really, really bad for every single company that's out there. This is bad for esports. If esports can't be taken seriously because some people like to voice their opinions during these live streams that are going to offend people, offend countries, cause a big stir, well, sponsors don't want to be a part of that. And to become a big esports entity, to make esports bigger than it is currently, you have to stick to guidelines. You have to stick to rules, because when you allow people the freedom of speech, which, yes, we all want freedom of speech. We all can agree that freedom of speech is an essential human right, right? Yes, we can agree on that. However, bringing that into esports, bringing that into gaming, bringing that into something that is completely unrelated, right? You have a fallout. You will have a huge fallout from it. Now, Blizzard did reply finally last night. Wasn't exactly the response that everybody was looking for, but there is no good response. There is not a good response that Blizzard could have. Now, they definitely applied a huge, I would say, a punishment to this person. And if they didn't, well, then other people are going to think that they could do the same thing. And when you start muddying the waters in that way, you lose all credibility. And that's what's important here. Blizzard took a stance on somebody expressing their freedom of speech because that freedom of speech ultimately affects millions of people, right? Now, again, I completely agree with what Blitzchung did. Completely. I love the fact that they did that during the live stream. It's great. It's a great way to bring awareness. But at the end of the day, when you guys out there, when you, the viewer, want to continue to watch esports and you want people to take esports seriously, you can't have things like this happening. There's no place for this in esports. And I'm not a huge advocate of esports. I think it's fantastic. It's great what they're doing with it. And I hope that it grows bigger than what it is currently. But it won't if you continue to let people do this. Now, this is only my opinion. This is just another way to look at this situation. But it is very important to take note of what it is that I am saying. Now, there's many things under the table here that are happening, and that, there's more and more news becoming apparent on, China and being in Blizzard's pockets and this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, I still feel, and let me just pause for a second here, because the CEO of Epic Games said, our streamers can say whatever they want. We don't care, basically, right? They can have whatever political stance that they want. Now, that's great to say that. I want somebody to act on that, because what is going to happen, again, if Epic Games allows their streamers and players to voice their opinions on what it is happening in the world, you start taking away from the actual game. You start taking away from the esports. It's not esports any longer. It's not a game any longer when you're bringing things from the outside world into it that ultimately can affect millions of people in some type of way. You lose sponsors. So I hope that somebody from Epic, one of the streamers, one of these popular streamers who are playing Fortnite, do the same type of thing. And what you're going to see is sponsors begin to start pulling away, because it doesn't affect their bottom line, right? This is bad for their bottom line. They can't be sponsors to something that is going to cause some type of controversy. They don't want their names on that, and that's completely understandable. So at the end of the day, do I completely agree with what Blizzard did? I wouldn't say I completely agree with what they did. I understand what they did. They set an example, because we don't want this happening again. That's like a fact right there. We don't want this happening again. Blizzard set a huge standard right there, and I think many other companies will kind of abide by that, because either way you're going to have a fallout, right? There's always going to be a fallout from this. However, as a multi-million, billion-dollar company, whatever Blizzard is at this standpoint, they have to protect their bottom line. They have to protect that, because there's people who work there who depend on working there. They depend on their livelihood by working for Blizzard. And ultimately, there's millions of people out there who enjoy their games and want to play their games. And I think there's so much at stake here in just many, many ways. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to keep esports as game focused as you can, because again, when you start steering away from that, you start to cause controversy, you start to cause problems and many other aspects of life. And this is, again, just my opinion on the entire matter. Not that my opinion matters much, but I can understand what Blizzard did, and I can understand other companies doing the same type of thing. And even companies that are saying that, yeah, we don't care what you say. I strongly feel that once it does happen, they'll have a change of thought. They will definitely change the way that they feel about people just sharing whatever the heck they want to share. So just take this opinion, my thoughts, with a grain of salt. But there are other ways to look at this. Again, I completely support Hong Kong, support the protesters, because it's quite fucked up, really, what's going on over there. I don't agree with that at all. But there's a time, there's a place for it. And, while he did what he did, which is great, caused much more awareness to their cause, ultimately it's not the place for it. And, to keep esports as professional as possible, you can't allow that. And I hope that makes sense to some of you out there. I'm not trying to make people too upset by posting this video, but it's just another way to look at things. So that's all I got for you guys with this video. And you guys are probably wondering, who the heck is this guy? Why is he talking about this stuff? Well, I run this other YouTube channel, and I can't get my image right here. I run another YouTube channel called IT Career Questions. I help people who are looking to get into IT. This is just another channel. Didn't want to put this over there because it's not exactly IT related. But that's it. Hope you enjoy. Take it easy.